preliminary steps, and they sunk a bunch of money into a hole that didn't yield water. That was much closer to the river than this. It was adjacent to an excellent well, and they came up empty. It's critical, in my view, that we find water, that we can get into the system. We've been on this chase intermittently for 3+ years. Does this ability outlined in this emergency resolution give us the ability to do preliminary work such as cone penetrometer or boring, soil borings? Can that be included as well?
Without a bid.
Yes, to get it done.
Well, first of all, you don't have to competitively bid any project unless it is over the statutory amount, which if I recall is $100,000. So, you know, I don't know what the cost.
125,000, I think.
No, but that's 125 to do the test well. As I understand it, what the councilman is proposing is you not do the test well, that you, to use this phrase, poke a couple of holes in the ground and see if any water comes up, and then go to test it, and or maybe go directly into making it a production well. Did I state what you said correctly?
Essentially, yes.
So I would think that if a test well ran $125,000, that you ought to be able to use your phrase, poke a couple of holes in the ground for $100,000 or less. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, what we're looking at for the 150,000 is not just poking a hole in the ground. What we're looking at is being able to get a well online.
No, I
and
understand
being
that,
able to pump water into the system in time for the summer. That's what we're looking at for the 150,000. So it's not just a matter of drilling a test bore or drilling a test boring or a test well per se. It's being able to move forward and get a well that meets the American Water Works standards to be able to connect it to our water system this summer, because it's not just a question of finding the water, it's not just a question of having sufficient capacity or quality, but it's doing it in such a way that you meet all of the Department of Public Health requirements in terms of how that well has been, how it's been tested and how it's been constructed. So that's what the $150,000 is doing for you. And providing that the funds are available, I don't know if there is sufficient time to. My concern is that what we have here is a very aggressive schedule, and at the very best case, what we're looking at is July to be able to put this water into the system. Now, it may or may not be possible depending on the availability of test rigs, because other people are out there contracting for these services just like we are. So depending on the availability of those, it might be possible to get some kind of a technical test equipment out there to confirm whether or not water exists there at that site, in addition to all the other data that we have about that site that says this would be a good place to drill a well. If you're looking for groundwater, if you want to add groundwater to your system as quickly as possible, this would be a good place to do it. So there's always additional information and additional tests that you can run. The question is, how much time do we have to be able to do that and also get the well online in time for the summer? That's the question. My
short answer would be we've had 3 years, and I'm not convinced that we've used that time well. I find it very, very troubling to be in it's an emergency now, the world will end if we don't do staff's recommended action at this point. That's where I find myself. I never like to be there, never have liked to be there. Don't think that's where we should have to be. It's sort of we're skipping some steps. We're not developing the information we need to develop well fields or the definitions of well fields by just putting all our eggs in one basket and saying, we'll just do this test well here. I advocate for our community that we engage some folks with the proper equipment and knowledge to do test borings to develop information down to 200 feet or deeper if it seems prudent in their minds on that site, as well as at the southwest corner of the parcels that contain the water tank and the ball fields off of River Street, which is directly across the freeway from the good test hole that we had done on the lands of Thomas, which we apparently don't have an agreement at this point to be able to benefit from. So if we look at it in that light, we're 2 for 2 with nothing to show for the money we spent for those 2 holes. We're running out of time. I don't want to see us wind up with another dry hole and nothing to show for it except a paid invoice. So I hope that we instruct staff to engage geotechnical competent firm or firms to collect the data, to fill out the information on, to give us additional data points towards the well fields that we've spoken of for years we want to migrate to instead of well points where a well are located, and to hopefully protect us from expending a substantial amount of money and having nothing to show for it.
Councilmember Thomas.
There are aspects of this that I don't understand. I'm inferring that a boring or alternative preliminary investigation would be a lot cheaper than running a test well.
That's correct.
Yeah, that was a question, thanks. In the event that we did a boring and it came up positive, do we still have to go through the process of doing a test well?
Yes.
And that's mandated?
Well, that's the only way you can find out. All a test boring is going to tell you is there water down there,
Right.
but a test well is what's going to tell you what kind of production you're going to get and those kind of things. So,
Okay. And what I'm also inferring, and this is a question, is it in the opinion of staff, are we on such a time crunch that if we decided to do an initial boring, it would then set back the whole process, or it might set back the whole process so that we could not put in a production well by the 1st of August?
yes, anything we add to this process is going to push. I mean, right now our most aggressive timeline is getting this online in July.
Okay.
Anything we do, and that's if everything in the universe comes up perfect. So let's just say something doesn't go perfect and we really get it online by the end of, or the beginning of August. So anything we do, any day we add, any council meeting we add, any of those things push it back that much further. And we get into some real dry times real quick at that point. So we understand, staff understands, and staff actually feels a little concerned coming out here and recommending this because it's not a slam dunk. There's no question about that. However, if we don't have any water to sell, $100,000, you know, if you take $150,000 for the test well and putting it online, and then you say $50,000 possibly for a test bore anyway, so we're talking about $100,000. That revenue difference might be made up real quick if we don't have the water to sell and we're going down a major conservation effort.
I'm